Good morning, good morning. As promised, this is actually the first event in Advantage Health Center, so I want to welcome all you guys to the clinic. And I'm super excited because as most of us know here in Minnesota, today was opening deer season. So while most people are out there chasing deer, we're hunting down hope here for the state of Minnesota. Dr. Scott Jensen.
Thank you. What a wonderful introduction. Let's go back in time. It was the 1980s. I was at a Chamber of Commerce dinner in Waconia, and there was a legislator, a guy named Earl Renneke. He's passed since then. I think Earl might have been from the LeSueur area, Senator Earl Renneke. And I was talking to a chiropractor after the dinner was over, and Earl came up to me, and he'd been in the Senate for quite a while, and he came up to this chiropractor and myself and said, "Can't you two figure it out as to make it work better for the patient?" Because often, especially in the 80s and 90s, it seemed like physicians and chiropractors were at odds. And I smiled at Earl because Earl knew my dad. And I said, "Earl, it's a hard issue. There's all kinds of complicating factors. There's insurance, et cetera, et cetera." I said, "But we're going to keep trying." Well, fast forward 40 years. And what are we seeing in this context of a COVID pandemic? But we're seeing that truly it's been, in so many situations, the chiropractors who have been leading the charge to allow patients to be their own best champion. I wrote a book 5 years ago, and it was titled Relationship Matters. And I wrote one chapter for each year I'd been in medicine, which was 33 years. And each chapter informed the idea that patients are up to the task of being their own best champion. And that I don't care who's on a patient's team, whether it's physicians and chiropractors and acupuncturists and naturopaths, whether it's homeopaths or nutritionists, whether it's a life coach, it doesn't matter. We have gotten upside down in the world of healthcare to the point where patients are often left with the notion that they just can't handle making the hard decisions. And then we use the cancer situation as the reason you can't. Well, that's an unusual situation. And quite frankly, I can't. I can't help walk a patient through the complexity of which chemotherapy regimen do we utilize for this cancer or that. I'm leaning into the oncologist's expertise. But 95% of the decisions that need to be made on a person's behalf in regards to how to be healthy can be made by you and should be made by you. And I should be the person next to you, or Jeff should be the person next to you saying, "Let's walk through this. Let's talk through this." What I've seen in this COVID pandemic is an absolute brutalization of the patient's agenda, to the point where patients have been abandoned and betrayed by so many physicians and clinics and hospitals and the entire medical profession. You've not been given not just access to hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin, but we're talking about simple, straightforward drugs that we would use for anybody that's got a respiratory infection that might be wheezing. We would use budesonide, we would use nebs, we would use prednisone, we would put you on Z-Pak. We would say, well, doxycycline might have some specific qualities that would help. But this COVID pandemic has absolutely laid the situation bare. And in the end, because I'm a guy who'd rather be a naive optimist than a jaded cynic, but in the end, we're going to find that COVID-19 did have a silver lining to a very dark cloud. And that silver lining is the kind of relationship that you might build with Jeff or with myself or whoever else. That's going to be the sustaining force going forward.